an original MCM production.
I'm Matt Rothschild. I'm the Executive Director of the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, and on behalf of Democracy 2020, the coalition that's sponsoring this conference today, we're holding a press conference right now to draw attention to the assault on democracy that's been happening in Madison, in the Capitol. And we're lucky to have here two state senators with us to talk about that. The first speaker is Senator Lena Taylor. She was on the Senate floor Friday night, November 6th, 2 Fridays ago, and she was trying to hold the fort down. And I remember Senate Majority Leader Fitzgerald saying, well, the courts made us do this. Courts made us destroy campaign finance. We don't want to have any constitutional challenges. And she stood up and said, if you're so worried about constitutional challenges, why are you making people who are getting food stamps, why are you making them get drug tested? That's already been ruled unconstitutional. So it was a really great point. It made me laugh when I was in the gallery. I was one of about 3 people in the Senate gallery. So I give you Senator Taylor.
Thank you. There is no question that our Senate colleagues are not trying to do what is best for the people. There's no question that they're not thinking about what is best for Wisconsin and what is best constitutionally. As stated, so many bills have been done that are eking away at individuals' rights. And are they thinking about the amount of suits and the amount of dissension that happens? Of course not. Slowly eating away at our democracy, whether it is voting rights, whether it is putting individuals under the pretense of testing to determine if they are entitled to food. But instead of an extraordinary session today to deal with the issues that are hurting Wisconsinites, the concept of figuring out how can we help Kohler to resolve the issue with their workers? What can we do to help Johnson Controls to try to figure out what to do to keep the jobs here? What can we do to help to keep Oscar Mayer? Instead, an extraordinary session to tweak away, to, I would argue, to destroy our democracy, to take us backwards, to take us to things that we know have not worked, to failed policies of the past. Instead, today, an extraordinary session to destroy our democracy. We should be doing an extraordinary session on job creation. There's nothing extraordinary about taking up a bill on golf carts, crossings. There's nothing extraordinary that is about that. But it would be extraordinary for us to figure out how we could help to create thousands of jobs in Milwaukee or in Wisconsin as a whole. And there certainly is nothing extraordinary about filling campaign coffers for my colleagues across the aisle by doing the campaign finance and the GAB bills, which will ultimately take us back to the failed policies of the past that we know have not worked. We've been here before. We know that these policies created the caucus scandals of the past. Lincoln's famous phrase was, of the people, for the people, and by the people. Not the politicians, not the donors, and not by corporations. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Taylor. Our next speaker is Senator Chris Larson, who is also valiantly trying to defend campaign finance and the rationale behind campaign finance reform on the Senate floor on November 6th, actually literally ripping to shreds the statute that the Republican leadership has been ripping to shreds. Senator Larson.
Thank you, Matt, and thanks, folks, for being here. Special thank you to Matt for being one of the few people who was there and decided to spend his Friday night and early Saturday morning to witness another bad step in the regressive era of Wisconsin's history, where we saw 3 vice presidents leave WEDC the week before. We saw record job losses in Oscar Mayer moving out, and we've seen worse reports since then. And yet, we were there. The first time since I've been a senator, we were in on a Friday night and a Saturday morning until 2:30 in the morning.
Almost three, Chris, almost three.
To be able to, instead of actually creating jobs, instead of moving our state forward, we were looking to try and figure out how we can shut out the public, how we can make sure that they don't know where the money is coming from, how we can increase the money that's going into politicians' coffers, and how we can make sure that those who are making these laws are staying in power. It's truly disturbing, it's truly disgusting that that's what the priorities are. Their priorities, and to be clear, these are only Republicans who are voting on this. Their priority is their own jobs, not your jobs. Not finding jobs, not creating quality, high-paying, family-supporting jobs. That's the only reason that this is happening. That's the only reason why we're moving in this direction. And if we're going to maintain our democracy, if we're going to maintain our status as a good government state, it's on not just senators to fight back, but the state reps who are there in the Capitol, but mostly the public. The public needs to be paying attention because as they're trying to close the curtain, and as they're trying to silence people and push them out, it's more important than ever that we put our foot in the door and we put our foot down to make sure that we're going to be heard, that this is still our state, that we are still going to control it, and not the special interests, not just the rich, not just those who can write giant campaign checks. If we are going to have a democracy that's going to be of the people, by the people, and for the people, we need to make sure that they are included in every step of the process, that it's not just the mega rich and the special interests that can own our democracy. So that's the road we're heading down. There is a stark difference. And that's the reason why, when people look at their state and they see why the priorities we believe in, the priorities we want to be addressed, why are they not being addressed? This is why. They're more concerned with making sure that the public doesn't understand what's going on, making sure they don't know where the money is coming from, how the money is being spent, and if it's being spent illegally, that you can't find out about it and that you can suspend investigations. And that's the direction that they're going in. And I think that most people who understand it know that this is the wrong direction. And it's on us to continue to point it out and speak up on the things that we do know about before it goes too far. So there's the assembly's in session today. If folks have not contacted their state reps, if they haven't contacted other state reps, now's the time to do it. While you still have a voice, while you still can be heard. And we should continue to speak up as long as we have a voice, because pretty soon we may not. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. It's now my pleasure to introduce Andrea Kaminsky. She's the Executive Director of the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin, and she's one of the tremendous leaders in this fight for democracy in Wisconsin. Andrea.
Thank you, Matt. What we've been seeing in Wisconsin in recent months and years is a pattern of destruction, and it's a pattern of destruction of the institutions and the policies that have been built up over more than a century to protect the people from overreach in government and to ensure accountability by our state government. We've seen proposals to destroy our open records laws. We've seen a proposal to change the mission of our great state university. We saw a proposal to do away with our nonpartisan Legislative Audit Bureau, which audits government and ensures accountability. Proposals to do away with the laws that protect us from corruption in government. Right. And now a proposal to do away with our nonpartisan Government Accountability Board. Now, the lawmakers who are pushing these changes are doing it with the minimal transparency that they can get away with. They don't want transparency because they know that the people don't support these changes. But while they're seeking minimal transparency, their motives are quite transparent. These proposals were written to benefit the political interests of the lawmakers who are pushing them and their funders. They're not written to benefit us, the people of Wisconsin, and our interests. The GAB proposal that the Assembly will vote on today would replace our top state elections agency with a commission of partisan appointees. And they do it just 4 months. This would go into effect just 4 months before our major presidential election. This model that they would like to replace the GAB with is a proven failure. It would have equal numbers, at least on the elections board, it would have equal numbers of political appointees from the two parties. With that, you get gridlock. And why anybody would not know that, I don't know, because we see it at the national level in our Federal Elections Commission, and we saw it at the state level in the State Elections Board that this proposal would take us back to. The Senate did amend the bill slightly to put 2 judges on the ethics board, but not on the elections board. And anyway, that is just lipstick on a pig. This bill is not intended to serve the voters or the local election officials in our state. We need a strong state elections agency that can provide clarity, not chaos, in a time of change. We've got new election laws that are going into effect and will be in effect for the first time for most voters next year. And so this kind of change is the least the least that we need is that clarity instead of chaos. We need it for us, the voters. We need it for our local elections officials, who are really the people who administer our elections and work tirelessly to ensure that everybody who is eligible can vote. We need competence and accountability. And if you want an example of how not to get competence and accountability in a new agency, you don't need to look any further than the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. 4 years in, the WEDC is still having a hard time stewarding tax dollars and keeping good jobs in Wisconsin. We don't want to make that kind of mistake in our top state elections agency on a presidential election year. Right. The Wisconsin Accountability Board, Government Accountability Board, is widely regarded as a nationally acclaimed model. We encourage people to contact their assembly representative this morning and say, enough with the destruction. It's time to keep all that's good in our state and to ensure that people, the voters, are the ones who ensure the outcome of the election, not big funders. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. I just want to talk for a couple minutes about both bills that are on the docket today up in Madison. Andrea talked very well about the problems with the Government Accountability Board. I just want to combine that with the assault on the John Doe law, because now there is no one to blow the whistle when politicians are engaged in illegal activity, and if someone blew the whistle, there'd be no one to prosecute anyway, because what they did by decimating the GAB, which had statutory responsibility to investigate law breaking of the campaign finance laws, was to take away one whistleblower. And then they took away the enforcer, the prosecutor, by getting rid of John Doe. It's amazing, and I think citizens all across Wisconsin are going to be shocked that the legislators, not these legislators behind me, but the Republican-dominated legislators in Madison, wrote a law that excluded only a tiny small group of people from the John Doe law. And that tiny small group of people were the legislators themselves. And so legislators can commit bribery on the floor of the state senate or the state assembly, and a John Doe prosecutor can't go after them. They put themselves above the law, and that's outrageous. And now I want to talk a little on this campaign finance law, which is just going to be a picnic for the wealthiest individuals and most powerful corporations in this state. Because what the bill does, first of all, doubles the amount of donations, the limit on donations that people can give. So it used to be $10,000 for governor, and who among us can give $10,000? Now it's going to be $20,000. But rather, even worse than that, there are now unlimited contributions by individuals to political parties. It used to be $10,000 was the ceiling here. Now it's unlimited. And then there's going to be coordination allowed, statutory permission for the candidate to coordinate with independent outside groups. So-called independent. How independent are they if they're coordinating with the candidate? But this is the ticket. This is the real kicker here. Rather than giving the candidate $20,000, the candidate's richest friend can give this independent group $20 million, and then the candidate will work with that group and decide what ads to put up with that $20 million, and that outside group never has to disclose who's giving him $20 million. And so we are never going to know who is buying our politicians or purchasing our policy in Madison. Yeah, we are going to be drowned in a sea of dark money here, and this bill is reducing the citizens of Wisconsin to mere spectators, and blindfolded spectators at that. So I want to encourage everybody to contact your state legislators today in Madison and see if we can't stop this bill. But while this is a dark day in Madison, and it's been a dark couple of weeks in Madison as far as campaign finance goes and the Government Accountability Board goes, I do want to say that it's a sunny day in Milwaukee today. It's a sunny day because we're meeting here in coalition with Democracy 2020, a coalition of great pro-democracy groups here in Wisconsin to chart a better future for Wisconsin and plan a way so that we can rectify what's been happening in Madison and expand rather than constrict our democracy. So thanks for coming, and we'll take questions if you have them.
No questions?
Lisa.
The sponsors of the bill say that they're just bringing our campaign finance laws into the modern age and bringing them up to date with recent court decisions. Do you think that's true?
No, it's a lie.
Exactly.
It's a total lie. It's a lie because even in the horrible Citizens United decision of 2010, even the Republican-dominated U.S. Supreme Court said the answer is disclosure. We need more disclosure, and what this bill does is limits disclosure. And also, Citizens United drew a strict line between direct donations to candidates and independent expenditures to outside groups. The whole premise of Citizens United, like its predecessor, Buckley v. Vallejo in 1976, was that there's a difference between giving to candidates and giving to independent groups. If you give to candidates, it's corrupting. They said if you give to independent groups, it's not so corrupting, but if the candidate is coordinating with the independent groups, it's really corrupting, and that's what they're inviting this week in Madison to happen, more corruption. Let's be clear, there's going to be more corruption and more criminality in Madison than ever before because of these bills.
And let's also take the statement that one of our colleagues said, which is, and I even spoke to, which is other court decisions that said we shouldn't do something one way or another, they move forward on, i.e. the concept of testing individuals for food stamps, for example. The court said that there was unconstitutionality in that. However, we moved forward. I always hear, one of my colleagues spoke about they always don't like, they call the judges, Chris, they always say activist judges. They don't like activist judges. But now it is, they have a decision and they're going by the decision of a activist judge. And let's be very clear, the decision said that disclosure should be provided. There were amendments to address disclosure. They voted against them.
I mean, to be clear, this will probably, Lisa, be a subject of a documentary at some point once this is all uncovered, but this is purely a Trojan horse, right? Where you have to take the individual pieces of the individual judges and the cloud of controversy and corruption that surrounded them, right? You had Judge Randa, which is somebody that they leaned on heavily, one of the most right-wing judges in the entire country, who ordered documents pertaining to legal investigations to say we should destroy those immediately and suspend the investigation. And then to have our state Supreme Court, where a majority, not just one or two, but a majority of the court is in office because their seats were bought by specific special interest groups, and having those special interest groups be the people before the court, and to say you should absolutely recuse yourself because your seat was bought by the Club for Growth, by these rich special interests, and for them to say, no, we're not going to recuse, and oh, by the way, you can allow for coordination, which is how they got elected in the first place. So it's, we don't have a big enough flow chart here to be able to show you how this is all connected. But if there was one, it would say right up on the top, corruption. And that's exactly what they're doing. And I think at some point, if you pay attention to it, you'll see that, yes, this is all just about corruption, collusion, consolidating power, and shutting out the people. So I don't know if you want to make that documentary or Dom wants to make it, but somebody should, to make sure that the public is informed on exactly what's going on in our state.
And back to your question, Justice Antonin Scalia of the U.S. Supreme Court said, we need to have disclosure, otherwise we won't be the home of the brave anymore. So these folks in Madison, the Republican majority, and it's not every Republican up there. I mean, Rob Coles, the Republican senator from Green Bay, voted against the campaign finance. One of the bills.
Don't give them too much credit.
All right. So Justice Antonin Scalia said, the United States wouldn't be the home of the brave if people can hide anonymously what they're doing politically, and people should stand up and take responsibility for their political actions. And so it just goes to show you that the people writing these bills in Madison are even to the right of the most reactionary justice on the U.S. Supreme Court. So that's, and let me just say one more thing about this. So they said Citizens United made us do this. The courts made us do this, and the First Amendment makes us do this. These are the most fickle friends of the First Amendment that you'll ever find. Where was their love of the First Amendment when they were arresting people in the gallery of the State Assembly for simply holding up a placard silently, or simply for taking pictures of people with their cell phones? They arrested people for that. Where was this love for the First Amendment when they were arresting people by the hundreds in the state capitol simply for singing pro-labor songs in the people's house? It's a joke that they believe in the First Amendment. Thanks for coming.
Don't just call your elected. Call electeds that are not yours. Because in the end, they make votes that affect you. Thank you for being here.
An MCM production.